magical about the land, the physical land of the UK. Whether it's a dry stone wall or an overgrown hedge, the rolling green hills, the patchwork pattern of rural agricultural fields, the brown-red brick of English townhouses and chimney tops evoke feelings within me. Feelings which I struggle to articulate. There's nothing better than the bluebell woods in spring or newborn lambs bleating through the fields. I know it doesn't make much sense, but I feel like the lush greens on this island are somehow more vibrant than in continental Europe. I don't know if anyone can relate, but I feel a deep connection to the land. Although it is small, it feels somehow vast and free. A country that welcomes you with open arms. There are so many things to love about this place, and yet it is a country composed of many contradictions. A people who are friendly and warm, and yet simultaneously repressed and insecure. The British sense of humour, the dry sarcasm that so many claim to love, is a front forged to paper over underlying insecurities. I equate this cultural trait with a sophisticated form of adolescence. I did grow up here. But the inability for the English to just say what they mean and ask for what they want is very frustrating for me. The English really struggle to speak their mind and tell the truth, as displayed through characters like those of Hugh Grant in Notting Hill. People feel the need to dress up any kind of opinion in 50 shades of niceties, watering down any potential substance to a sort of grey and lifeless form of nothingness. What is it about the British that makes direct and clear communication so difficult? Why is it that cynicism rules the roost? And why is it so important to try and be funny? Well, it's partly a coping mechanism, and it works. I would rather be stuck in a lift with a Saki Brit than a serious German, but sometimes I do just wish that people would share openly instead of burying their intentions and emotions under impenetrable layers of mixed messages. The drag culture so endemic in the UK's gay scene is a perfect representation of this. I like laughter and humour as much as the next guy, but what happens when the sarcastic snipes and the bitter jibes run out? What happens when the laughter stops? Self-loathing is a common trait across the Western world, and there definitely exists a very strong strain of self-loathing in the UK. In the social sciences, humour is always seen as a way of connecting with people. If you can make someone laugh, they will like you and you will be accepted into the group. But is it really worth the cost? Is it worth hiding your true self behind a sarcastic safety blanket of cynicism? Well, this is really all a question of degrees and moderation. A little bit of banter is great, that's a lot of fun. But if the whole basis of the relationship is sort of sarcastic snipes and jibes and banter, maybe it's time to question things. The older I get, the less time I have for pleasantries. Just say what you mean, ask for what you want with honest vulnerability. And of course, I'm generalizing massively here. But the fact that people can only open up and show their true selves after like their fifth beer in the UK was one of the reasons that I left. So emotionally repressed and socially awkward, we can only really bear our true selves with the crutch of alcohol. In fact, alcohol seems to be the only drug where people are worried if you are not taking it. The amount of societal pressure that you have to resist if you don't let it drink is immense. People think you are sick or ill, or they just find you very boring and uninteresting if you decide you don't want to binge the booze. Alcohol is, of course, a very important part of many cultures, but nobody does it quite like the Brits. The lack of social mobility and the lack of trust in government are closely intertwined. The social classes are becoming further estranged from each other as polarization and echo chambers grow. This is most intensely felt in London and online, but the ripples of this dissipate rapidly, so that it is not really felt as intensely in rural Britain. I think we don't talk enough about the cultural differences between urban and country living. You are in many ways sheltered from the dramas of politics and society. And I say this having grown up in rural Britain. It's just a much more peaceful and quiet life. maybe this is where my connection to the land comes from. Anonymity is not really a thing if you live in the country. People stop and talk to each other. Yes, I know, even in the British countryside, sense of community has been eroded. It's not like it used to be, but it's still easier to achieve this than it is in a big city. It's yet another example of more not necessarily meaning better, as in more people do not build a stronger community. In fact, it can really mean the exact opposite. This is why so many people feel very lonely and lost in big cities like London or New York. And before we go any further, I do fully acknowledge that this has a lot to do with age and life situation. When I was growing up in the rural countryside in England, I couldn't wait to get out of there. I found it really boring. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to do things. That's normal. And it's only sort of in hindsight, in retrospect, that you realize that, wow, hey, that was actually pretty good what we had then. That was the kind of lifestyle that many people would kill to have. During the lockdown, there were so many stories that came out about the rediscovery of the British countryside, forest bathing and public footpaths. People really started to see the value of the British countryside and its nature once again. And it became very quickly apparent that living in a city can become a concrete prison constrained by a web of social rules. And yet I say all of this as somebody who currently lives in a city, although it is a very small city with very quick access to nature. So I do feel very grateful that I kind of have a bit of the best of both worlds. I feel like in many ways the City of London is attempting to emulate the USA culturally. It's an economy constructed on financial instruments and built upon the foundations of fiat credit and empty promises. It's problematic but alluring and incubator for all that is out of the ordinary. The energy of London is intoxicating but exhausting, and however many people say that they feel culturally closer to Europe and Germany or the Netherlands, I don't see this. I see the UK, led by London, moving further and further towards the US. It is a society that has an understanding of the sovereign individual, with rockstar politics, increasing consumerism, work, the demise of the nuclear family, militant vegans, and the tyranny of the minority. The further from London, the less intense this is, but it is still there. The UK will always have a special place in my heart, and although I don't live there anymore, I will never renounce my British citizenship. It's a place that I still call home, even though I haven't lived there for almost 20 years. Complexity never does well on the internet. People always want to hear a one-sided, polarizing view, because to actually employ intellectual integrity requires too much energy and effort. But that's life. Life is complex. It's never black and white. Every win holds within it a trade-off. You can love and loathe something at the same time. I love the UK, and yet I have no desire to live there at this current stage in my life. It's complicated and contradictory, but that's okay.